In this video, I'm going to talk about epithelial tissues. So first of all, just kind of a general definition of epithelial tissues. These are tissues that are going to help form coverings on the body and also line surfaces in the body. So in your body cavities and also inside of most of your internal organs, you will have epithelial tissues lining those. Now these tissues are made up of sheet-like structures, okay, so sheets of cells. And again, they're pretty widespread throughout the body. So there are two things that we use whenever we are trying to name epithelial tissues. The first thing that we're going to use is the number of cell layers. Okay, number of cell layers. So the two different types of cell layers that we can see in a tissue, we could either have a simple epithelium, which a simple epithelium consists of one layer of cells. Okay, so it would look something like this, where you just have individual cells kind of laid side by side in a single file line. Okay. Second type of cell layer you could see is called a stratified epithelium. Now, stratified epitheliums are made of multiple layers. They're stacked on top of one another. There's kind of what a stratified epithelium would look like. Right? So that's the first thing we look at when we're naming them. The second thing we're going to look at is cell shape. And there are three different cell shapes when referring to epithelial tissues. The first cell shape is a little flattened, squished looking cell called a squamous cell. Okay, squamous cell. Second cell shape looks kind of like a cube, so we call it a cuboidal cell. Okay, and the third cell shape is kind of long and skinny. It's kind of like a column, so it got the name columnar cell. Right, so we can use these two things, the number of cell layers and the type of cell shape, in order to name a lot of our epithelial tissues. Okay. Now, one more thing I want to point out when looking at epithelial tissues is that you will always have what's called an apical surface to the tissue and a basal surface to the tissue. Okay, so let me just go to one of these tissues here just to illustrate this. So I'll use this one in the middle, okay, to illustrate it. So when you look at this tissue, okay, it's made up of multiple cells, lots of cells, and you can see all of these, the major cells of the epithelial tissue are right here. So you can see all those nice nuclei kind of scattered in there. Well, this line right here represents what's called the basement membrane. So that's where the connective tissue is going to start, underneath the epithelial tissue. So all of this down here is connective tissue. Okay. All of this up here, where I have that little bracket drawn, is epithelial tissue. All right, so again, this is the basement membrane. So this layer of the epithelium right here is called the basal surface, or the basal layer. Okay, this part up here is called the apical surface. The apical surface always faces this open, empty space where I'm drawing these X's. See all that nice white space? So the apical surface is always going to face that area. Okay, the apical surface of this tissue down here is right here. Right, you can see all that white space there. So that's the apical surface, and then you have the basal surface down here. Okay, this will, be important when we start naming these tissues. And I'll tell you more about that in just a second, okay? So let's move back up. Erase all this. And let's get back up to the top here. So let's start with this first epithelial tissue, this picture that I have laid out here. This tissue is called simple squamous epithelium. As you can see, it's made up of an individual layer of cells. So here's one little layer. They're kind of laid out side by side here. So simple epithelium. And these are squamous shaped cells. Okay. Now this type of tissue is found in the air sacs of your lungs. That's the major place where you're going to find this one. And it's used for rapid diffusion of materials, okay, across this membrane. It allows diffusion to happen very, very quickly. If you think about the air sacs of the lungs, what's going to be diffusing across those is going to be things like oxygen gas, carbon dioxide gas, and also certain types of nutrients, okay, can diffuse across that membrane. All right, moving down to this next one. This one is called simple cuboidal epithelium. Now this one might be a little tricky looking just because the cells are arranged in a circular pattern, okay? But I'm going to kind of outline the basement membrane of the tissue. So that's the basal surface. And up here you can see the apical surface where that little white space is. So each one of these little guys here is an individual cell, kind of a cuboidal shaped cell side by side, okay? So that's a simple cuboidal epithelium. Now this type of epithelium is found in your kidney tubules, and also a lot of the glands are made of this type of epithelium. So this one is going to be very good for secretion and absorption of substances, okay? Moving down to this next type. This one here is called simple columnar epithelium. So this one's made of column-shaped cells. So you can see the cells kind of lined side by side here. I'm going to kind of outline a few of them for you. You can see those nice dark purple nuclei inside of the cells. You got all your connective tissue down here in pink. Okay. Now this type of epithelium lines most of your gastrointestinal tract, basically from the stomach all the way down through the intestines. And it's going to be very, very good at absorption, so absorption of nutrients. And mucus will also get produced by this tissue type in the digestive tract. And that mucus is used for lubrication when you're looking at the digestive tract. So lubrication of that waste material or food material that's moving through that tract. So it's not rubbing directly against those cells and damaging them. Okay. Also have secretion of a lot of enzymes in the digestive tract that are going to assist with the digestive process, breaking down food. All right, so moving down to the next one. Now this one is a little funny, okay? So this one is actually a simple type of epithelium, and you might be tricked into thinking that it looks like it's stratified, that it looks like it has multiple layers of cells, okay? But this tissue is called pseudo-stratified epithelium. And that prefix pseudo means false, okay? So this is a false stratified epithelium. It kind of looks like it's stratified, but it's really a simple epithelium. So the reason that it looks stratified, so this is the basement membrane here, and you can see all the epithelial tissue kind of up above it. What's going on is you have some cells in this tissue that are taller than others. So when you have cells sitting in front of them that are a little bit shorter, they tend to cover up the bottom half of those tall cells. And so you can't really see them touching that basement membrane because there are shorter cells possibly sitting in front of them. So it looks like these taller cells are stacked on top of these shorter ones, when in reality, they are actually touching that basement membrane, okay? They're just sitting behind these shorter cells. All right? So again, it looks kind of like it's stratified, but it's really not. All of these cells are touching this basement membrane, which makes it a simple epithelium. You just have some cells that are shorter than others, and so it kind of makes it look like they're stacked on top of one another. Now, this tissue type is found in your upper respiratory tract, places like the trachea. And as you might notice on the apical surface of this tissue, there's a whole lot of little hair-like structures coming off of these cells. Those are cilia. Okay, cilia. These cilia are unique to this specific type of epithelial tissue, and they're used for movement. All right. So in your respiratory tract, you also have cells that produce mucus, like you have in the digestive tract. But the mucus in your respiratory tract is used for protective purposes. So it lines this tissue. You have some mucus that kind of lines the tissue, and it helps to catch any kind of particulate matter that you might breathe in during the day. So dust, dirt, bugs, debris, all of that gets caught in that mucus, and then these cilia can move and they'll beat, and they beat that mucus up and out of your respiratory tract into your throat, into your mouth, and then you can swallow all of that debris and waste material and digest it and kill it. So you don't have to worry about it getting down into your lungs and making you sick. Okay? So that one's going to be very good at producing mucus and also, providing movement by those cilia to help move that mucus up and out of the respiratory tract. Okay? Now this next one here is actually a stratified epithelium. So it is called stratified squamous epithelium. Now you might notice if you look closely at this epithelium, you have the basement membrane down here with all this connective tissue underneath. Some of these cells down in these lower layers, if you look closely at those, they look kind of cuboidal shaped, right? So you might be tricked into thinking, well, how do I know, that this is not stratified cuboidal? Why is it stratified squamous? Well, the reason you go with the squamous is because you always look at the apical surface of a tissue when you're trying to determine the cell shape. And remember, up here we have our apical surface, right? The one that's exposed to this open space here. So these cells, if you look at them closely, they're extremely squished looking. They're kind of flat, right? So we know that those are squamous cells, okay? So this is stratified squamous epithelium. This tissue is found in the epidermis of your skin, so the outer layers of your skin. It's found lining the inside of your mouth and also lining your esophagus. Now those are all places that are exposed to friction and abrasion all day, every day. So, this tissue type is very, very good at allowing for protection. That is its major purpose. It provides tons of layers of cells to allow for protection of underlying tissues. All right, then we get to this last one here. This one is a little unique, so it has its own little name. It's called transitional epithelium. Now this is a type of stratified epithelium. There's multiple cell layers going on here. And you can see the cell shape kind of transitions, okay, from almost a cuboidal shaped cell. Some of them kind of look columnar. And as you move up in cell layer, you get these really big bulbous shaped cells, okay, so really large bubble shaped cells at the top. Now this type of epithelium looks very unique, okay, and it is found in places like your urinary tract. So the urinary bladder and the urethra are lined with transitional epithelium, and this tissue is very good at allowing for stretch, okay, allowing stretching in those organs. If you think about the bladder specifically, it's very good that our bladder has the capability to stretch. That way we can store more urine and we don't have to go to the bathroom so frequently, okay? So stretch, allowing for stretch is going to be the primary function of this tissue, okay? So you guys look over those epithelial tissues and let me know if you guys have any questions about them.